we're off. Good afternoon and welcome to the Development Control and Regulatory Board meeting, Thursday the 15th of June. Just a bit of housekeeping before we start the meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that present that the meeting will be broadcast live via the County Council website. Will also be available for viewing on the County Council website after the meeting. Please turn your microphones on before speaking and off when you are finished to ensure that you are heard on the webcast. Thank you very much. First item on the agenda is minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of May. Would someone like to move those?
Can I move adoption, Chairman?
And Bill,
Seconded, Chairman.
Bill seconded. Okay. If we go through those page by page, and if anyone has anything to clarify on it, please speak up. Page number 3, page number 4, page number 5, and an eighth of a page on 6. All in favour? All happy with that? Yeah? Okay, thank you. Question time. There's no questions been put forward and we have no questions. Questions excuse me, asked by members under Standing Orders 7.3 and 7.5. We've not received any of those either, and no one's asked to ask. To advise of any urgent items, which is item number 4, there's nothing on that either. Declaration of interest in respect of items on the agenda. It is noted that all members who are also members of a parish, town or district council or liaison committee will have a personal interest in those applications which relates to areas covered by those authorities. Are there any further declarations of interest to? I think that's no then. Right, if we move on to item 7 then, which is the first item on the agenda proper, which is a tree preservation order at Thurnby, and Mr. is going to deal with that. Andrew.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is an application by Mr. Gill of 1 Lakeside Court, Thurnby, to fell an ash tree on the grounds that it is contributing to the cracking of the brick retaining wall located adjacent to Court Road. The Thurnby Parish Council have objected to the felling of the ash tree on the grounds that the tree has amenity value, and notes that the tree is 2 metres from the wall and there is a conifer hedge planted against the wall. That's a tree. The recommendation is that consent is granted to fell the ash tree on the grounds that the removal of the ash tree will reduce the uptake of water from the clay subsoil and will allow the wall to be restored back to its previous levels, and this will cause the cracks in the brickwork to close up and then they can be repaired. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Galton is the division member for there. There has been no representations from Mr. Galton. We have no speakers today on this item either, so I'll open it to members, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I thought it more advantageous to take the hedge out rather than take the tree out as a first move. Conifer hedges do take a lot of water out of the ground as it's adjacent to the hedge. I thought if I was the landowner, that's the first thing I'd do before I touch the tree. However, you can't put a teepee on a hedge, so that's why it's come before us. But I thought a prudent landowner would have actually taken the hedge out first and see what happens before we touch the tree, but that's just my personal opinion.
Mr. Shaw, have you had conversation with these?
As Mr. Bolton says quite correctly, the hedge is not protected. The ash tree is contributing together with the hedge line in taking moisture out of the soils, and following the removal of the ash tree, it is my presumption then that the landowner would then take out the hedge as well. But the hedge is only, because it's quite a small hedge, it's only about 1 metre high because the ground is raised. It's what the sort of, it's only taking out a small quantity of the water, whereas the ash tree, which is got deeper roots, is most likely taking out more of the water.
Done.
Thank you, Chairman. I suppose it's the classic, really. What came first, the tree or the wall? I am concerned to think that a tree has got to that age. What did we say? It was 48, 49 years old. I mean, it's what is the life expectancy of the tree? Are is it nearly towards the end of its life, or could this sort of go on for another 20 or 30 years or 40 years? So I'd be interested to know that, Chairman. Thank you.
As it's an ash tree, because of ash dieback, it's unclear how long it would survive. Obviously, as you're probably aware, as ash dieback is spreading from the eastern counties towards the Midlands. So it's very difficult really to sort of say how long that tree would remain viable under this situation. If there wasn't ash dieback, the tree has the potential to grow to 20 metres in height, and it would probably have another 20 years or so, in 20 to 30 years in that particular location. The tree is most likely self-set. It would have just sort of regenerated while in the former grounds of the courthouse. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's very good. Because of the ash dieback and the concern, if this is a healthy specimen, and we know ash trees are in danger across the country because of this terrible disease affecting trees, is it not a thought that this is a superb specimen? It seems to be in good health and sturdy and doing well, to sort of remove it, because in another 5 or 10 years we might be sort of wringing our hands out and saying, well, gosh, why were we sort of removing such wonderful specimens?
The tree is the canopy of the tree is quite sparse, the upper canopy. So my view is that the tree is not a particularly good specimen. It's adjacent to the highway, and the problem for the householder is that should the wall collapse, it's falling onto the public footway and could be a danger to the public. So it's a matter of balance between the loss of an ash tree, which may or may not be resistant, we don't know, and the potential the collapsing of the wall and the cost to the householder of continually having to rebuild the wall. He's rebuilt it once already, so and has kept the sort of not applied to remove the tree. But now that the wall is cracking yet again, he has been advised by his agent that it might be better if the tree is removed so that the wall can be rebuilt and won't necessarily require extensive rebuilding, so that the cracking can just be the mortar can be sort of repointed rather than having to rebuild the whole wall.
Any further comments, questions? Mrs. Taylor.
Obviously, with the tree being healthy, is there any work that can be done to reduce the height? You said it was that the canopy is quite sparse. Is there any work that can be done on the top of that to make it any more healthier? But I am quite reluctant to remove a healthy tree for the sake of a wall, and I'm of the same opinion that the conifer that's growing there should perhaps be removed. And I'm sure there's plenty of examples in the county of cracked walls, and we just say, you know, that wall could last another 20 years before it collapses, or it could last 2 years. It's difficult to say, and I think we need to be careful that we don't just remove every tree that could possibly make a wall fall down.
It's considered that pruning trees doesn't really reduce their uptake, because as they regrow, the amount of water they start just taking as much water up as they previously did within a very short time. So there would be no benefit. This is really about the amenity value of the tree versus the loss of enjoyment to the householder. The reasons for tree preservation orders are to maintain the amenity of the area, but it has to be balanced against any loss that a householder may have, and this is a case where it can be demonstrated that the tree is causing the wall to become cracked, and obviously the householder has a responsibility of safety with regard to the highway and the footway, and it's his view that the removal of the tree will discharge that responsibility and allow him to repair the wall safely.
David Jennings.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think the loss of any tree is unfortunate, but after reading Andrew's report, it does state there's insufficient space and light on the site to plant a replacement tree. It is causing a damage, and I think we've got to bite the bullet and agree to that it goes. And I will propose the recommendation, Chairman.
Is there a seconder for that?
A second, Chairman.
Oh, Tony Gillard. If there's no further comments, then could we have a vote on it then, please? All in favour of the motion to fell? Oh, yes. Yes, I suppose I better have a go as well. Okay. Move on then to agenda item number 8, which is another tree preservation order, or to deal with trees in a tree preservation order at Birstall Park Road number 2, tree preservation order 1964. Mr. Shaw, please.
This one. A moderate detrimental impact on the amenity of the area. The lime tree is infected with a fungal disease, Phytophthora, and has a limited safe life expectancy of less than 10 years. The tree is potentially dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. So you are saying that the yew tree is in good condition then, really? And
Yes.
yeah. Are there any comments from Mr. Bentley, the division member?
No comments have been received. No.
Okay. Members then, please. David Jennings.
Yes, Chairman, I think the officer's got it right. It's just, as I said before a few minutes ago, it's a shame to lose any tree. But the officer has recommended that we do not allow them to remove one. But the other one, he used the words, it could be in a dangerous condition. And I think we would be wrong if we didn't heed that. So I'm quite happy again to propose the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, David. Dan, you're seconding, are you? Yeah. Any further comments from anyone else? No? We take a vote on that, please, then. All in favour of David's proposition? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on then to agenda item number 9. And Mr. Wright is dealing with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. This is an application for a change of use to metal storage and recycling at Unit 18D on the Regent Street Industrial Estate. And this slide shows the location of the Regent Street Industrial Estate just south of Narborough, on the edge, southwest edge of the Greater Leicester area. You can see from this slide, this is Regent Street Industrial Estate. It's accessed over a bridge over the Birmingham-Leicester railway line, and access is then through a residential street, Regent Street, onto Leicester Road, Narborough, and then onto the B4114, which is on the county's lorry network. The aerial photograph shows the unit in question, the surrounding industrial units, and the closest residential properties on the other side of the railway line. The application is, as I said, is for the change of use of an existing unit on the estate to carry out waste metal storage and small-scale processing. The unit has an existing use rights for light industry and was last used as a gym and aerobic studio with members of the public attending. This is a picture in front of the unit in question. It's a very small unit. It's got an internal floor space within the building of 65 square metres, and it's proposed that all the storage and processing will take place within the building. The hours of operation are proposed between 9 and 5 weekdays, with Saturday operations being from 9 till 1, and no working on Sundays or holidays, bank holidays. There's been no objections from consultees other than from Narborough Parish Council, who've raised a number of concerns, amongst them the proximity to residential properties and an inconsistency with other uses on the estate. First of all, this is the access to the industrial estate, so it is through a residential area. This is This is Regent Street, looking towards the bridge over the railway into the estate. So you can just see the parapet of the bridge in the middle of the picture. And there it is a bit closer. And that's the railway line. There is vegetation either side of the railway line, which provides some barrier between the units and the residential area. The Parish Council have also raised concerns about noise and air pollution. The applicant has stated that the main processing he would do on site would involve running cable through a cable stripper to remove the plastic from the metal, and then the separated plastic and metal would then be redistributed off-site. Cable stripping isn't a noisy operation. It's a fairly low-key operation, and as I've said, would be taking place within the building. Other processing would be done by hand. For example, signs which the applicant would purchase would be dismantled using a screwdriver. And a significant amount of his work would just involve collecting and storing material off-site to be then forwarded on and when sold. There'd be no chemicals or inflammable liquids stored on the site, and he is saying that he would process no more than 200 tonnes of waste material in any year. The applicant is just using one light commercial vehicle to collect and distribute materials from his unit, and so it's unlikely there would be frequent attendance at the unit other than from his own vehicle. The recommendation is on page 33 to permit the change of use, subject to the conditions that follow on page 34. I think you've been given an addendum sheet which proposes a revised condition 3, but apart from that, it's proposed that the conditions would be as on page 34. Chairman, that's. I'll just receive questions if there are any.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Wright. I did ask you in the pre-meeting about whether the applicant would be taking goods in, people delivering goods to his premises and being sold to him. Did you get any answer with that? Or?
Yeah, we've contacted the applicant over lunch, and he confirms that it's not his intention that the public would visit his site either to deliver or collect materials from the unit.
Right. But there would be trade people collecting, or?
I think it's his intention that he would collect it and then he would be using his vehicle to remove it, yeah, to distribute it to wherever he was selling the recycled material to.
Yeah. Are there any comments from Mr. Richardson, the ward member?
No, we've not received any comments.
No, we've no speakers on this item, so I'll throw it open to members then. If anyone, Mr. Bolter.
Just a few comments, Chair. I was pleased to see condition 7, but is it strong enough in that the doors need to be shut when the disassembling is taking place? It doesn't actually say that in the condition. I think it ought to, because having experienced this in another area, it can be quite noisy taking these things apart, and residents only 20 metres away. It's fairly close. If the door was shut, at least it will be contain some of the noise within the unit if the work's taking place. And the second thing is that there's a comment in the papers about containers. That's not been mentioned. There's a comment about stacking containers in the yard. But if he's doing this operation himself, he can't move a container on his back of his transit. So how are the containers going out? mean, what normally happens is they strip the materials off, put it in a container, and they're taken off the site in bulk by a skip lorry or something. But it doesn't mention that in the report, but it also causes a lot of noise when they drop skips off. As I'm sure Mr. Charlesworth can comment on, from one not too far from him. So, where's the skip bit come in? And containers.
I think the skip bit is a red herring, Mr. Bolter.
Right.
It comes from the comment of Blaby District Council, and
Yeah.
I think there's no intention that there'll be any skips stored on site. He would park his vehicle in the within the gated compound.
Yes.
But otherwise, all operations will be taking place in the building.
So is it worth putting a note to applicant if you can't put a condition on? No skips to be left in the site, or is that...
Well, what we're saying is that there should be no storage
Yeah.
or processing outside the building. So I take that to include skips and...
That's what I
use
thought,
of
a note
skips,
to applicant,
yeah.
just to clarify, that might be of benefit, that was all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mrs. Richardson.
Thank you, Chairman. It did actually say in the report about collection and delivery, so I was coming along the same lines as how are things collected from this area, because that will have an impact on the residential area at the moment. And I think Blaby District here does actually say about recommending an imposition of conditions to limit containers, etc. So I wonder if we would be minded to put those conditions forward.
I understand what you're saying. My feeling was that wasn't necessary, given that we were saying there should be no storage taking place outside the building. I think he'd be hard pushed to get a skip in there. He's given us no reason to believe that he would be using skips. The collection that's referred to in the report perhaps isn't clear, but it's his collection. He will go out, collect the materials, and then bring them back to the unit to be put in the building, and the distribution will be done by him using the same vehicle to take it off site to whoever he's selling the processed material to. So that's why it was felt that the condition requested by Blaby District Council wasn't necessary. You can see there are other operations going on around. There are containers being used around about the premises. I think my opinion, having been to see the site, was that the scale of operation that this gentleman was intending to undertake was quite compatible with the operations that were taking place elsewhere on units adjoining. I don't know whether that helps.
Bill.
Yes, Chairman, I think this is a small-scale operation. They only mention one full-time, one part-time operator there. I think the conditions mentioned cover any concerns, so I'm happy to move the recommendation, Chairman.
Bill, is that with the addendum for items 3? Yeah. Okay. Mr. Bolter.
I'll come back, Chair. I agree. At the moment, this operator I don't think will cause a problem. But this permission is not known to him. Once you grant this permission, he could sell this business on to somebody else. Now, it might only be a one-man operation, but he might say it's on to somebody else. And once we grant permission, without the right conditions on, somebody else could come in and greatly increase the movements or some other waste reclaiming operation on site. So it's important we get the right things in. And that's why I was a bit concerned about containers. Because if we don't state it as a condition or as a note to applicant, for the avoidance of doubt, we need to put something in. Because if you sell it on, then we could be a little embarrassed in a couple of years' time when it get complaints from residents about its use.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there is a danger of over-conditioning sometimes on these things, but I'll ask Mr. Wright if he's got any further ideas. But Mr. Charlesworth.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things. It's under the comments by Blaby District Council again. It's something you alluded to this morning at the briefing. They're saying that they will need a scrap metal licence. Does a scrap metal licence give them more licence to do other things than we have got before us here? Because could people turn up and dispose of metal? And I'm not sure what the implications are of having a licence, and it seems Blaby District Council say they'll need one. Does it give them more scope to do things? And then there's really a comment on the papers. On the diagram on page 27, we haven't got a colour copy, so unless you really knew what you were looking for in terms of where the site was, it is not abundantly clear. Now, while members of the committee might be able to pick it out, I'm not sure members of the public would, and they're entitled to look at these papers. So can I ask either we have a colour copy with a red outline or an arrow pointing to the site or something going forward? Thank you, Chair.
We've got two other speakers.
Certainly on the last point taken, so we'll address that. The other question was about the licence. I had a quick look at a scrap metal licence that had been issued over lunch, and they're very basic. I think it's more a matter of, it's a bit like a taxi licence, I think. So it doesn't necessarily control exactly what can go on the site, but that's why the permission is the relevant document. The planning permission, if granted, is a relevant document to control what goes on the site.
Dan.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to start off by seconding the proposition that we've had regarding this item. I look on this as a starter unit. It's a small business. There's one or one and a half or two people. Looking at that picture, I mean, there's a fair amount of industrial activity going on, so it's in the right location, and it would be an area probably smaller than this room. It's not going to be a vast undertaking, and if it was successful, and we could only wish him luck that it is, he'd probably want a lot bigger area to work with and bigger vehicles and goodness knows what. So I think we ought to be encouraging small businesses. It's in the right place. It's in an industrial base unit, and I think we should, with our reservations, I understand people's reservations, but I think at the end of the day, apart from putting handcuffs on him, I mean, what, you can restrict and restrict. I think, this is probably the right sort of pitch in this document, and I'd congratulate the officers on that, and I think I'm happy to move this forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Tony, you want.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was going to second it, but Dan's beat me to it. But I do agree and share the comments made by Bill and Dan. I do know the area, and I'm more than happy to support the application, including the addendum.
Thank you, Tony. Are there any further comments or questions? We'll like to take a vote on it then, please? All in favour of the proposition? That's including the addendum, of course. Okay. Thanks for that. Moving on then, item number 10 is any other items the chairman has decided to take as urgent. Well, we haven't any of those. Item number 11 is chairman's announcements, which I've none to make other than say thank you very much for attending, and the meeting is closed. Thank you very much. Thank you.